I'm becoming an advocate for ADHD UK because I was recently diagnosed with ADHD earlier this year at the age of 27. And from my diagnosis to now, I found that I have been able to find uh, enough awareness and support for ADHD. So I'd like to become an advocate just so I can just kind of help spread exactly what are kind of the facts of what ADHD is. With my ADHD diagnosis, it kind of started because I was very frustrated in lockdown that I wasn't able to complete any projects that I had, any creative ambitions during a time when we had all the kind of free time in the world being inside. Um, Contacting my GP wasn't the most helpful. They just suggested I might be depressed again because of previous diagnosis of that. It was when then I was in work that I was just talking about something else unrelated, but I was just talking and talking and talking and having kind of three conversations in one where the person I was with, she just asked very politely, do you have ADHD? And I was like, no, why do you ask? And then she says, I think you have ADHD. So I go, oh, okay. How do I find that out? She was very kind to send me a link later after work. That just is a standard test, like 15, 20 questions, which then would give a score at the end, and it will just give a general kind of review then. At the time, I think I scored like 43 out of 50 or something like that. So it said very likely to have ADHD. So that was the start of that journey. If the person in work hadn't said that, I probably would still be kind of feeling very frustrated today. From that assessment, the online assessment that I took, having a follow-up phone call with my GP regarding what at the time they might have thought was depression, I asked if we can talk about ADHD. In between those moments, I've been doing research online, reading forums, watching videos on YouTube, understanding that like all these little kind of faults of my life are very related to ADHD. And it was very interesting to not find it was very interesting to see that there was a lot of things I could relate to. And it wasn't just like the one or two things, but like 99% of the time, it was like, oh, so that's what I deal with. Okay, so this is what I can do. You know, it was really interesting to kind of have like this whole other world kind of that I wasn't aware of, dealing with the same annoyances that I had to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So from the conversation with my GP, they didn't sound entirely convinced themselves that about my possible diagnosis. They did run through a series of standard questions asking about childhood, school, adult life. And then I was basically given a referral to an ADHD specialist that happened to reside like within my town. It took then many months then just to wait for a letter just to come through and say, I want to have this diagnosis, or I want to have this phone call. So once that was sent off, then I had to wait more months then just to finally have like the official like kind of phone call. So the time from that first phone call with the GP to say, I think I have ADHD, to what would then become my diagnosis phone call with the ADHD specialist, I think that was about 8 to 9 months, which from what I understand is actually quite shorter than the average. So I was quite fortunate that I was able to kind of go through this process a little bit easier on my end. So when it came to the diagnosis, it was an hour and a half to 2 hours long phone call. The doctor then was asking even more specific questions, going literally from the day I was born to how much I weighed to the day we're having that phone call. Everything was kind of talked about. I had preemptively written notes beforehand just to kind of think back and reflect on where did I struggle, where, as an example, in school, I was never a bad student, but I always did the homework at the last minute. And it's not like I was procrastinating playing video games. I would just sit at my desk feeling awful, not doing the work that I wanted to complete. So it'd be kind of those kind of examples of life. And so I went from primary school to college to university to work then, and how work has kind of affected me, or how I at least believed it affected me at the time. And it was from that conversation then I had a similar kind of test then to that website test I did, where it was just kind of these standardized, like, are you tired constantly? Do you get distracted? Are you thinking about something else when someone's talking to you? And I think the scores were kind of being added up on the doctor's end as well. When I got at the end of the phone call then, as it was wrapping up, that's when the doctor like kind of officially diagnosed me. Not gonna lie, I did actually well up, and I did get a bit emotional, just because it really was, and like it was so surreal to kind of within like kind of a year to have a lot of answers as to why, not that why is anything wrong with me, but why I know I'm very creative and I know I'm very ambitious, but like why was I never really able to kind of push myself further and further and further to really kind of go as far as I can, and like not see the results that I expected. It was always felt like there was something holding me back, and I didn't know really what it was. And it's not to say that this is like, it is just down to the ADHD. I know I have my own disciplines I got to overcome, but it was so relieving to have that kind of wall broken down, so then I can just kind of keep pushing forward now and keep working towards to better myself. When talking about ADHD, to kind of like the general public or friends and family, is the main thing I just kind of would like to talk to people about is just like how kind of my brain kind of functions in comparison to theirs. There's this kind of stigma that everyone has. Everyone has a little bit of ADHD. Everyone gets distracted. Everyone procrastinates. But I don't think they really truly understand like how frustrating it is that you have the good intentions of doing what you want to do, and everyone has bad days, but even on the good days I'm still not able to kind of set out the goals I wanted to do that day, even if it's as simple as brushing my teeth twice a day. It's a massive, like, I really have to drum it into my head that I need to brush my teeth. It only takes 3 minutes, and then I can carry on, before suddenly something else just suddenly slip my mind. Like if I'm walking to the bathroom, suddenly I'm like, well, I'll go downstairs and make a cup of tea, and I've suddenly forgotten what my original plan was. It's very it can be very draining because of that, because you're constantly having to like kind of think about what it is you want to do, and like it's like you're fighting against yourself. Like there's just this other side of you that's not malicious towards yourself, but definitely doesn't help you and isn't in any way trying to keep you on track with what you want to do, basically. So yeah, just I think if that patience can just be there, I think would also be really helpful, just because of that. I think if more people understood kind of the hoops that we have to jump through to kind of just do basic tasks, and like it's never, we never have any bad intentions, it would just be really appreciated. So before my diagnosis, it was always kind of apparent to me that I was kind of a clumsy person, and I would make kind of small careless mistakes that could just be disruptive to the flow of the places that I've worked. It's been different now because I've been diagnosed, but I'm also working at home. I'm working for myself, so it's been very easy to kind of look after, like, to be more it's been much easier to kind of be more apologetic to myself. I can basically say, I understand why I'm doing this, and I can move on and fix any mistakes I make. Before that, when I was working in a kitchen, or I was working on films, those are kind of the mistakes that, like, you're affecting a whole team of people, and it was always like the amount of shame I'd get if I'd make some really silly, careless mistake that could affect everyone else, and I would not really understand why. It's hard for me to say now what I would do because I'm working from home and I'm working for myself. But if now I was working within a team again, I still feel like there's this worry that if I mention ADHD, that I'm considered less of an employee because I might be more prone to mistakes or problems along the line. But I would like employers to know that everyone, I myself am more than capable of doing what, the task is at hand. I just need that little bit of breathing space. If there is a problem that I might have accidentally caused, allow me to solve it. I think just jumping straight to trying to pin the blame on people is not kind of a healthy way of going. I think everyone kind of needs to slow down a little bit. I think the work has gotten a little bit too quick. I think that's kind of an issue I find with working at the moment, is everyone just wants everything now, and unfortunately for me, that I need to slow it down a little bit. Otherwise, there is going to be mistakes here and there, and it's just going to slow the whole process down. So yeah, just I think if just a general research, a general understanding of ADHD, just to kind of again remove some of that negative stigma, because there's so much positivity that kind of come from ADHD. I think there's so much more you can get with someone with ADHD, or at least just just on my own personal experience of it. I do feel I have a lot of strong qualities that I now have understood is because of my ADHD. I think if we could just be more open about it, I think we can get a lot more from it then. I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until adulthood. This has remained a problem for me all my life, but it wasn't supported during school for that reason. If I was going to schools now, what I would like for them just to understand is the child doesn't have to be misbehaving. It doesn't have to be kind of just out of control. I wasn't a bad student in any way. In fact, I was very eager to learn. And during primary school, I was so focused on certain subjects, but then not focused on other subjects, to the point where I would have this weird thing of being, I'd excel in maths because I loved it, but just borderline, I just couldn't just barely do anything in English because I wasn't interested in that. I think if it could be picked up sooner, I don't know. It's hard for me to say, whether it'd be positive or not. I like to think it would be incredibly positive if I had a previous an earlier diagnosis. But I just like schools just to understand that it's not. There's so much more than just the general thing of oh, they're not trying. I think one of the things I really was annoyed at with school was because during teacher parent sessions, the most common phrase, and it was it's one thing I would have thought I should have I wish everyone kind of picked up on, but I was constantly told to my parents how I was incredibly bright and creative and engaging, but my actual coursework never reflected that. Then it was always very kind of mediocre, or C grade, D grade work. And the amount of times I was told that I know you can do better, I believe in you and all that stuff, and it wasn't no one really saw kind of a correlation of, oh, that's strange, he is really focused. Like he really does want to do it, and yet his coursework like doesn't reflect that. And it's like every subject kind of was like that, especially in comprehensive school. That's definitely why I saw the warning signs. When I'm thinking back now, and I really wish they had a way of just noticing that trend, so then they can have just start a conversation with my parents about it, because there wasn't a conversation there. My parents never believed I have ADHD, and it obviously, as an adult now, having a diagnosis now, it was very hard for them to kind of agree with that diagnosis. So I think getting starting that conversation as soon as possible is so important for everyone involved. So then everyone can just be kind of more aware of it. And so it doesn't mean then that suddenly, as an adult, like, suddenly we realized, oh, we messed up. We didn't catch it. We didn't know at the time. But yeah, that's what I would just say to schools. Basically, is just really kind of start that conversation now. Again, like the person might not have ADHD, but as long as that conversation starts, and I'm not saying like, to get children on medication or anything like that, but there's definitely a different workflow to working that I wish I could have taken, because the current workflow of school was, and how like classes are done, it doesn't, I realize now it doesn't work for me. So if they can have that conversation earlier and maybe change the workflow for a certain, for a couple of pupils here and there, and then see if it can cause an improvement, I think that could have done so much more for so many undiagnosed children. So if I'm talking to the NHS about ADHD, the number one thing I'd like to say is that getting the diagnosis, I still felt very alone, because once the diagnosis was given, I was just given medication and just continued with my life. There was no kind of documents to kind of maybe help me better understand what ADHD is. There was nothing to kind of give me kind of tips to kind of help me change how I live my life, just to kind of better suit what someone with ADHD will have to deal with. Just being given the medication, and then just being left on my own, it just felt very isolating. And it was only kind of finding support groups that was I able to really kind of feel a bit better at living with it. But the sad thing was that, like, I asked my doctor on like our monthly phone calls, where what support can I find, and even the support links that they provided wasn't, I was sent to like a dead website basically. I wasn't told about this charity, for example. Like I had to find this charity myself, and see what it offers and see how helpful it can be. The fact that I had to do that myself, I think that's really like, yeah, that needs to be improved, definitely. I've always appreciated the NHS. I appreciate how like this is all free as is. I know, again, my diagnosis was faster than the average person, so that diagnosis does need to speed up, because this is such a life-changing thing. You can't really sit on it. This is really changing the way you live your life, for the positive. Once you have your diagnosis and you're better understanding yourself so much more, like that information needs to be there ready for you. So when you do get that diagnosis, you just have like, here it is. This is like just starting off, because you are changing a lot about your life suddenly, for the better. But yeah, it's annoying that I got to do all the legwork. I got to find it all out myself, because I'm not the doctor though. So yeah. So being diagnosed with ADHD has basically made me kind of the talking point for the subject among my friends. Um, I my friendship is always very strong, and I don't have any qualities about myself, especially the ADHD, that kind of negatively impacts my friends. So I don't. There's no asking of them to kind of understand, or to maybe adapt in any way to kind of help me. They've always been very supportive and very loyal, and like the best people I know. What I found is when I talk about ADHD to my friends, a couple of them realize themselves the similarities between my childhood being undiagnosed and their childhood, to the point where I send them the same website I used originally, just to kind of give me a general sense of if I have ADHD or not. And the ones then that I talk to about it, they do score quite high. So there is a potential that they might have it. The difference, though, is they are just like, oh, okay, I might have it, but then they just kind of carry on with their lives, and that's totally their choice for that, and that kind of we're happy with that. They ask me every now and again, kind of different things. They do ask about medication, and I do talk about like how the medication helps on some days and doesn't help on others. And yeah, just like I just kind of talk to them very generally about it. It's very like casual about that. It doesn't, it's not like my entire personality is talking about ADHD. So it's not like every time we we meet up, we talk about it. It's just every now and again, little thing happens, and like I might throw an offhand remark. So if a friend does something, I go, "Oh, I do that," and it turns out that was ADHD. Or I go like, "Oh, sorry, I've been doing this because of XYZ," and then they go, "Oh, is that ADHD?" And I go, "Maybe, I don't know. I'll look it up because I'm still learning it." And so it's nice that there is that kind of back and forth about it. They're happy to have that conversation about it. So when I opened the conversation of ADHD to my parents, it did start off as very kind of like not not like any pushback on it, but it was just very much like dismissive. Um, Going back to kind of my time in school, because my teachers never caught it, and to catch any potential symptoms I might have had as a child, my parents would just fair enough. They were under the assumption that I didn't have it. There was they had as much research as I did at the time, and so when I've been talking about the diagnosis process during it, before I actually had the official diagnosis, it did kind of create not any friction, but there was a lot of, even if you have it, all it takes is good exercise, good diet, positive attitude, write down your ideas every day, which are all completely valid things, which I attempt to do every day. But it was very like dismissive in the sense of that's all you need to do. Like if you're feeling like you're not accomplishing anything, just do those things and you'll be fine. And it was very frustrating then to kind of have these conversations, especially as I research it more and more. And then, if we're having these conversations, then going back to what I just said with my friends, when I'm talking to my friends, I try not to make it my personality of I'm now the guy who has ADHD. But when I'm talking to my parents, because they've been with me my whole life, I have to go through. I try and break it down about how like all my ideas that I have, the amount of business ideas I've tried to set up and failed, and I have like hobbies that I've put money into, which kind of didn't go anywhere after 2 weeks. to kind of my habits that I'm not able to keep, whether that's losing weight or doing exercise and all this stuff. How it's not all ADHD, but it's such a part of it that it's, you know, I just want them to understand that. And I'm not looking for like any kind of like using that as like an excuse. It was just there was never like a point where like they just go, oh, okay, I understand. And it was always kind of, that was always kind of like quite isolating to me as well. So nowadays, as I talk about it more and I find more videos that kind of help break down exactly what ADHD is in a very digestible manner, you know, I share it with my parents because I'm very kind of confident one of my parents has ADHD as well. But they have the whole thing of, well, I've lived till, you know, my current age, you know, and I've been fine. So by that logic, you can do the same. And again, it's not the most helpful, supportive thing you want to hear. But they're now at least kind of, I think the more I am just mentioning it, it is now just becoming, you know, part of their life as well. I think that's the biggest thing. Was it wasn't part of their life, and suddenly within a year it now is. And you know, so there's been that they've had to kind of just adapt in that sense for it. So I don't, you know, change anything about my life so drastically that they suddenly need to make accommodations for it, but it is still that like understanding of how my brain works. I think it has kind of now started to smooth that quite a bit. So the more now I want to learn about it, the more I'm happy to kind of educate. And it's been, yeah, it's kind of like smoothing out now. So just a bit of friction at the start, but now it's like kind of, we're now understanding better together. So if I had a magic wand, would I entirely remove my ADHD? I don't know. There's a short answer, because this is one of those things where, because I was diagnosed at 27, I don't know what my life would be like if I was diagnosed at 10 years old, for example. You know, the only one I could really think of at the time is, oh, in university, I would have gotten a free laptop for support. All my exams would have been more accommodating for it. So to remove my ADHD, I don't know, because it's hard to say. Like, I'm still kind of new to it in the sense of understanding my diagnosis. It hasn't been a year yet. It's, I think, for the most part, like, you know, the most positive aspects of ADHD, which I kind of now use to my strength as I better understand it, is kind of my creativity and my focus on it when when I'm allowed to focus on it, because sometimes my brain is just like, nah, not today, and those days suck. If I had to get rid of anything about ADHD, it's days where my brain is just like, you're not doing it. You're not, whatever you want to do, you're not in the mood for it. And I'm like fighting against myself just to not kind of jump to any distractions that are in the house. But when it comes to like the positive parts, like, I love my creativity. I really do think I think outside the box, because some of the stuff I say, like, really can, for good or bad, be a different idea. But I keep myself entertained in that way. I do very much like to take a concept and just absolutely like twist it on itself, and just kind of see what the response is on that. But then, yeah, if we're just talking about the negative side of it, just that lack of motivation on days, it's so annoying. Like, again, now that I'm better understanding it, I am taking steps to kind of at least make the most of those kind of days. But it is, yeah, it is kind of really frustrating at times just to have an intention, and just absolutely kind of, either forget you're doing it, or just you feel kind of incredibly negative about doing that task sometimes, and so that you kind of use that to kind of push yourself away from it and go, oh, I'm just going to go and do something a little bit more fun, because I know like it's a whole kind of thing of like trying to well, I don't want to say like I don't think it's medically correct or accurate, but just that trying to get that dopamine kind of rush, that sort of thing. It is, as soon as like something is kind of looking like a little bit kind of scary or anxiety inducing, it's so frustrating how like my brain will just immediately kind of jump somewhere else just to kind of comfort me in a sense. And I don't actually want that. I want to do the task because, when it's like, say, paying a bill or whatever, once it's done, that fear is just washed away. So relieving at times. That's been kind of like one of the main things for me of like taking medication. It relieves that stress. So when I do go, oh, okay, I got to do this scary thing, on a typical day without medication, pre-diagnosis, I would just let it sit until the very last second where suddenly my brain would just go, you got to do it now. Similar to when I was doing homework in school, for example, but taking medication now, it's not like it suddenly makes me go, oh, something else is controlling me to do it. It just kind of relieves that kind of pressure, that stress. So when I got to do that scary thing, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to do it. And as simple as that, basically. I would rather not have to take medication to do that. So I would rather that be taken away just so I can be more, be less reliant on medication. But, that's just the way it is at the moment. The biggest thing I'm doing right now in my life is sorting out my finances. One of the things I found out was a big part of ADHD was what is referred to as the ADHD tax, where this can come down to impulse spending or buying stuff that has a short shelf life and you forget to use it and so it's gone. And that was just a waste of money there. And bits and bobs like that really add up over time. I am in a bit of debt. Nothing that like makes me lose sleep at night, but it is embarrassing again, where if we went back to if I had a diagnosis earlier, if I didn't have ADHD, where would my finances be? I don't know, but I would like to think that my finances were a little bit better because I'm less impulsive to buy stuff. So to kind of help with that now, I kind of moved all my pay that I get from my job into a Monzo account. And I've only been using it now for about 2 months, but the effects of it have been so immediately kind of positive because I'm able just to make all these little pots, these little mini bank accounts within my main one that I can just, as soon as I get paid, it just automatically distributes pay my salary into various pots that the main one would be taxes. So a third of that would go to that. Then you have my bills, which would be, my car insurance or Spotify account, all from the main ones to the more fun ones. And then I also have other ones that are just holiday, presents, video games. It all just gets separated like that. And it's so wonderful now that I can just, say, for example, with my video games, they're so expensive now. It's easy to spend 70 quid when you look at your bank account and you see a large number in it, but you don't realize that by the end of the month, you needed that 70 quid to pay off a bill. What is so great for me now, and it's been so positive on me for my mental health, is I just go, oh, okay, I see a game, and then I look in my bank account, I look in my Monzo account, I look in my video games pot, and if I see 70 quid there, it means I have enough to buy a game. And that money was only ever for video games. So I know for a fact that if I spend that money, it's not going to affect anything else from all the other pots. I know I'm going to have the money to pay my bills, money to pay my taxes at the end of the year, I got money saving up for my presents for Christmas time because that gets so expensive. It's been so much easier for me, especially because of the impulse buying, that it's able to allow me just to kind of take a breath, just look at where I'm at financially, and then just make the correct choice, basically. That's been like the main one for me. So very happy with that one. Like another small strategy, which I'm still kind of trying to get used to, is doing a daily bullet journal, which I keep next to my computer where I work. So then it's one of the first things I do of the day. I think the problem with it's kind of a weird one. I both like automation with my phone when it comes to bills and stuff, where I don't have to think about it and it just pays it immediately. But at the same time, there's things that I can't automate, such as like things that are in my calendar. The reminders don't remind me because I just swipe it away. But having it something physical that I'm writing down allows me to really kind of remember, oh, this important thing is coming up. Whether it is like in 2 weeks' time, I see, oh, in my bullet journal, it's someone's birthday in 2 weeks, so I can put the time away now, like while it's in my head, just to quickly look for a present or do some card shopping. Or if I don't have the time, I could just put it in my calendar, in my bullet journal, where I can just say buy present for so and so. Doing that has been really helpful. Just the ironic thing is I got to remind myself to use the bullet journal, which is typically the first thing I have checked off on my to-do list is read it, because I still forget to do that. I still leave it to the side, and it's like it could be like 4 p.m. and I'm like, oh yeah, forgot about that. And then I'm trying to like go through it quickly and see if I missed anything important. But I'm getting better now at kind of keeping that as a habit. When it comes to what might be the worst thing that happened to me because of ADHD, I can only say it as a hypothetical, of what if, basically, because of the diagnosis at age 27. It really is like I can't help but think, oh, what if I was diagnosed earlier? Because of the many kind of negative parts of my life, both big and small, I can confidently say ADHD kind of contributed to at the time, because it was, unknown then. All I can really say is just, what if I was diagnosed sooner and it could have helped me now? But there is no such thing as a time machine, so I can't go back in time and change it, nor can I see in a different world where I was diagnosed and just compare my life to theirs. So all I can do is just kind of think forward, and that's really it now. Just keep learning, keep understanding, see what works for me, and kind of just keep growing from there, basically. That massive relief that it's not all my fault. There's the fact that there is so much more to the human brain, that we're still learning, we're still understanding. Having this diagnosis has been such a positive effect on me over the last year or so. It has massively improved my mental health, and just my work ethic, just to be able to kind of adapt how I work now. And it's been so much more comfortable and flexible for me. Having that diagnosis just technically was the best thing. I will say, I am kind of positive on how the medication helps me, but I'm not dependent on it. There are days where I take it, some days where I don't. But on days I do take it, it does help give that extra boost, just to kind of towards my productivity. It's been so good now. It's just to find support groups now, just to be able just to kind of have actual conversations about real niche things that like go wrong in my life, and just having someone like understand, and it's been really, really nice just kind of listen to. And I'm hoping to kind of meet more people in the future. And I feel like as well, one of the things I'm hoping for is that because of my dialogue about ADHD to my friends and my family, that it is going to create kind of a chain reaction that they might want to look into it themselves and see if it can, if they might need a diagnosis, and then they can get that help as well. So yeah, that's kind of it really. Just I guess spreading the awareness of it as well.